16 Hollywood celebrities broken by a child's death. They once had fame, fortune, and millions of loyal fans, but all of that couldn't protect their children. Unexpected accidents, rare diseases, or the tragedies of addiction and despair snatched away young lives, leaving behind irreplaceable pain. These losses have etched themselves into their lives, changing them forever. Stay until the end and sign up for Classic Hollywood Legends to hear more unforgettable, heartbreaking stories. Eric Clapton. Eric Clapton is an English guitarist, singer, and songwriter whose work with the Yardbirds Cream and his solo career made him one of rock's most influential musicians. Yet the most personal chapter of his life began with his son Connor, born in 1986 to Italian actress Laurie Del Santo. Clapton spent the evening of March 19, 1991, with 4-year-old Connor at a circus in New York. They planned to visit the zoo the following morning. Instead, Connor fell through an open window in a 53rd floor Manhattan apartment while it was being cleaned. Clapton later recalled receiving a frantic telephone call, walking toward the building, and seeing police and emergency crews outside. Connor died on March 20th, 1991. How does a parent continue after the ordinary plans of one morning are replaced by a funeral? Clapton withdrew for several months, spending time alone attending recovery meetings and playing guitar. Music gradually became a way to face the loss. He wrote "Circus Left Town" about his final evening with Connor, while my father's eyes connected the son he had lost with the father he had never known. His best-known response was "Tears in Heaven," written with Will Jennings for the film Rush. Clapton described the song as a place to channel his grief and later performed it during his 1992 MTV Unplugged session. The recording won 3 Grammy Awards, but its lasting importance was more personal. Rather than hiding behind a polished public image, Clapton allowed listeners to hear a father asking whether he would ever meet his child again. That question gave the song its quiet power long after the tragedy. John Travolta and Kelly Preston. John Travolta and Kelly Preston were Hollywood actors whose marriage lasted nearly 3 decades. Travolta became internationally famous through Saturday Night Fever, Grease, and Pulp Fiction, while Preston appeared in films including Twins and Jerry Maguire. Their first child, Jet Travolta, was born in 1992. Jet experienced serious health difficulties from childhood. Kelly later said he had been diagnosed with autism, suffered seizures, and had developed Kawasaki syndrome when he was very young. The family generally protected his medical life from public attention, but his seizure disorder became central to the tragedy that occurred during a vacation in the Bahamas. On January 2, 2009, 16-year-old Jet was found unconscious in a bathroom at the family's residence at the Old Bahama Bay Resort on Grand Bahama. John performed CPR while emergency help was called, but Jet could not be revived. His death certificate listed a seizure as the cause of death, and the autopsy reportedly found no evidence of head trauma. How could 2 parents return home from a family holiday without the son who had been at the center of their daily lives? In the weeks after Jet's death, John and Kelly created the Jet Travolta Foundation. Its stated purpose was to support children with special needs and organizations working in education, health, and disaster relief. They continued raising their daughter Ella and later welcomed another son, Benjamin, in 2010. Kelly died from breast cancer in July 2020. John has continued publicly remembering both her and Jet, sharing family photographs and marking Jet's birthdays long after the Bahamas trip ended with messages about love, memory, and the importance of family. Sylvester Stallone. Sylvester Stallone became Hollywood's defining action star through Rocky and Rambo. But his eldest son, Sage Moonblood Stallone, was building a career of his own. Born in 1976 to Stallone and his first wife, Sasha Chak, Sage acted beside his father as Rocky Balboa Jr. in Rocky V and later appeared with him in Daylight. He also worked as a filmmaker and co-founded Grindhouse Releasing, a company devoted to restoring cult movies. On July 13, 2012, Sage was found dead in his Los Angeles home at 36. Early reports triggered rumors about drugs, but the Los Angeles County coroner later ruled that he died naturally from atherosclerotic coronary artery disease, which caused a heart attack. Toxicology testing found no illegal drugs and only a small, non-fatal amount of hydrocodone. How does a father mourn when strangers are inventing explanations for his son's final hours? Stallone responded by asking the media to stop the speculation and remember Sage with compassion. He described the loss as agonizing and emphasized that no pain was greater than losing a child. Weeks later, while promoting The Expendables 2, he acknowledged that returning to work was difficult, but said he was trying to move forward with the support of family and friends. Sage's death was especially painful because father and son had shared both a family bond and the screen. Their scenes in Rocky V, built around tension between Rocky and his neglected son, gained a different weight after 2012. The coroner's findings finally ended the overdose rumors, leaving a simpler and more devastating fact. Sage had died suddenly from severe heart disease at only 36. Paul Newman. Paul Newman was an American actor-director, racing enthusiast, and philanthropist whose performances in The Hustler, Cool Hand, Luke and Butch Cassidy, and The Sundance Kid made him one of Hollywood's most admired stars. His only son, Alan Scott Newman, was born in 1950 during Newman's first marriage to Jackie Whitty. Scott tried to establish an identity outside his father's enormous shadow. He worked as an actor and stunt performer, appearing in films including The Towering Inferno and Breakheart Pass. Behind those credits, however, he struggled with alcohol and drugs. Paul arranged professional help and treatment, but the problem continued. On November 20th, 1978, Scott died in Los Angeles at 28 from an accidental overdose involving alcohol and several drugs. Newman later acknowledged the guilt and helplessness he carried, questioning whether his fame absences and difficulty communicating with Scott had contributed to the distance between them. What can a parent do when money doctors and repeated attempts to help still cannot stop a child's addiction? Newman did not allow Scott's death to remain only a private family tragedy. In 1980, he opened the Scott Newman Center in Torrance, California. The organization developed educational programs designed to warn students, parents, and communities about drug and alcohol abuse. His daughter, Susan Newman, later served as its executive director. The center eventually closed in 2013, but its creation showed how Newman responded to a loss he could not reverse. Behind the blue eyes, awards, and carefully guarded public image was a father who wished he and Scott had spoken more honestly about peer-pressure addiction and their strained relationship before that final night. Prince Rogers Nelson was a singer-songwriter, producer, and multi-instrumentalist whose music made him one of the most original stars of his generation. In 1996, he married dancer Maite Garcia, and that October they welcomed a son whom Garcia later identified as Amir. The baby was born with Pfeiffer syndrome type 2, a rare genetic disorder that causes the bones of the skull to fuse too early and can seriously affect the face, hands, feet, brain, and breathing. Garcia later wrote that Amir struggled to breathe and required intensive medical treatment from the moment he was born. He died 6 days later. How does a parent leave a hospital carrying memories instead of the child they had prepared to bring home? Prince guarded the loss with extreme privacy. Weeks afterward, he and Garcia appeared on The Oprah Winfrey Show. When asked about reports concerning their baby, Prince avoided discussing the death and spoke instead about their family's future. Garcia later explained that they were still unable to accept what had happened. The couple experienced another pregnancy loss, and their marriage eventually ended. Garcia has said that Amir's death created a grief neither parent truly escaped. She later described the experience in her memoir, The Most Beautiful My Life, with Prince giving the public details Prince had kept out of view. In later years, Garcia continued honoring Amir through charitable work connected to children, families, and the arts. Prince never publicly discussed the details of Amir's death before his own death in 2016. Behind the controlled image and protected private life was a father whose only child survived for 6 days. Vince Neil. Vince Neil is the lead singer of Motley Crue, the hard rock band known for albums such as Dr. Feelgood and Girls, Girls, Girls. In 1995, while working on his solo career, his attention shifted completely to his 4-year-old daughter, Skylar Linnea Neil. Skylar, whose mother was Neil's former wife, Charisse Riddell, became ill in April 1995. Doctors diagnosed Wilms' tumor, a kidney cancer most often found in children. Over the next 4 months, she underwent repeated operations, chemotherapy, and radiation treatment at Children's Hospital Los Angeles. Neil later described spending long days beside her as doctors tried to control a tumor that continued spreading despite treatment. What would remain important if every concert record and career plan suddenly had to wait outside a hospital room? Skylar died on August 15, 1995, after multiple organ failure. She was only 4. Neil had already recorded Skylar's song for his solo album Carved in Stone, but her death shortly before the album's release gave the track a meaning no promotional campaign could have planned. Afterward, Neil established the Skylar Neil Memorial Fund. Through benefit events, including an annual golf tournament, the organization raised money for childhood cancer research and other medical causes involving children. He has also continued marking Skylar's memory publicly, sometimes sharing photographs rather than lengthy statements. The story is often reduced to another tragedy in the turbulent history of Motley Crue. Yet the lasting evidence lies in the hospital work and fundraising carried out in Skylar's name. Her life lasted 4 years, but the foundation created after her death continued directing attention and money towards sick children and their families nationwide. O.J. Simpson. O.J. Simpson was an American football star, broadcaster, and actor who won the Heisman Trophy and became the first NFL player to rush for more than 2,000 yards in a season. Before later controversies consumed his public image, his family endured a loss he seldom discussed. Simpson and his first wife, Marguerite Whitley, had 3 children, Arnell Jason and Aaron LaShawn Simpson. In August 1979, Aaron was only 23 months old when she was found unconscious in the swimming pool at the family's Los Angeles home. A contemporary newspaper report stated that Marguerite pulled her daughter from the water. Paramedics revived the child and transported her to UCLA Medical Center, where she remained in a coma. For 8 days, the family waited, while doctors tried to save her during those final days. Aaron died on August 26, 1979, less than 1 month before her 2nd birthday. What can parents hold on to when emergency workers restore a heartbeat, yet the outcome remains beyond anyone's control? Unlike many parts of Simpson's later life, Aaron's death was not repeatedly discussed in interviews or turned into a public narrative. Major profiles generally recorded only the essential facts: the backyard pool, the hospital vigil, and the child who did not recover. The Los Angeles Times later noted that Simpson rarely spoke publicly about the accident. Aaron's story was eventually overshadowed by the famed criminal trial and controversy that defined how the world remembered her father. Within the Simpson family, however, she remained their youngest daughter, a child whose brief life ended in an ordinary place that had suddenly become the scene of an irreversible tragedy. Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson became the youngest heavyweight champion in boxing history and built a public image around speed, power, and intimidation. In May 2009, however, his family faced a loss that had nothing to do with the ring. His 4-year-old daughter, Exodus Sierra Tyson, was living in Phoenix with her mother, Sol Xochitl, and her older brother, Miguel. On May 25th, Miguel found Exodus unconscious near a treadmill in the home's exercise room. Police said her neck had become caught in a looped cord hanging beneath the machine's console. Her mother freed her, began CPR, and called emergency services. Exodus was taken to a hospital and placed on life support. Tyson, who was in Las Vegas, traveled to Phoenix after learning what had happened. Exodus died on May 26, 2009. What words could possibly help a parent standing beside a hospital bed after an ordinary household object caused such an irreversible accident? Tyson's family released a statement describing their loss and asking for privacy. Months later, he spoke publicly about his grief, calling Exodus his angel and admitting that he remained in denial. He also said he did not want to search for someone to blame because seeing another grieving parent made him understand that anger could not change the outcome. Tyson later described the period as one of the darkest moments of his life. Rather than presenting himself as the feared champion, audiences knew he spoke as a father, trying to continue without fully understanding how. In later appearances, he continued honoring Exodus publicly, keeping her name visible in public tributes and family memories during the difficult years that followed. Lisa Marie Presley. Lisa Marie Presley was a singer-songwriter and the only child of Elvis and Priscilla Presley. Although her family name placed her under public scrutiny from birth, her life after July 2020 became centered on a loss she later described in her own words. Her son Benjamin Storm Keogh was born in 1992 during her marriage to musician Danny Keogh. Benjamin largely avoided celebrity life, despite frequent public comparisons to his grandfather Elvis. On July 12, 2020, he died by suicide at his home in Calabasas, California. He was 27. What keeps a mother moving forward when grief changes the meaning of every ordinary day? For nearly 2 years, Lisa Marie rarely spoke publicly about Benjamin's death. In August 2022, she wrote an essay for National Grief Awareness Day, explaining that grief does not disappear or become easier simply because time passes. She rejected the idea that mourners should recover on a timetable and said she continued living for her 3 daughters, Riley Keogh and twins Harper and Finley Lockwood. Her account was especially powerful because it came directly from her, not from anonymous friends or tabloid speculation. She described the loneliness that can follow a funeral when visitors return to their lives while the bereaved family remains permanently altered. Benjamin was buried in the meditation garden at Graceland, near Elvis and other members of the Presley family. Lisa Marie died on January 12, 2023, at 54. Her family arranged for her burial beside Benjamin. Their adjoining graves became the final physical detail of a bond she had spent her last years describing quietly and honestly to others. Marie Osmond. Marie Osmond is an American singer, actress, and television personality who became famous as part of the Osmond family and later co-hosted Donnie and Marie. Away from the stage, she raised 8 children, including Michael, whom she and Brian Blosil adopted as an infant. Michael struggled with depression and entered a treatment program as a teenager. By 2010, he was 18 and studying fashion in Los Angeles. Osmond later said he had been doing well academically and was sober, but loneliness remained a problem. During their final telephone conversation, Michael told his mother that he felt he had no friends. She tried to reassure him and promised to visit. On February 26, 2010, Michael died by suicide in Los Angeles. The coroner's report found no drugs in his system. How does a mother live with the memory of a final conversation when she had already promised to come? Osmond initially asked for privacy, then spoke publicly with Oprah Winfrey 9 months later. She described the helplessness of recognizing the isolation in Michael's words, because she had experienced depression herself. Years afterward, she said grief did not end. It returned in waves, sometimes with the same force as the first day. She also said Michael had been bullied because of his sobriety, though she presented that as her understanding of what contributed to his distress, not as the sole explanation. Osmond returned to work after the funeral, explaining that performing was part of how her family survived hardship. Michael remained present in her interviews, not as a celebrity tragedy, but as the son she continued to name and remember. Robert Plant. Robert Plant is the English singer best known as the voice of Led Zeppelin, whose albums and tours made him one of rock's most recognizable frontmen. In July 1977, while the band was touring the United States, Plant received the call that ended the tour and changed his family permanently. His 5-year-old son, Carrack Pendragon Plant, had become seriously ill at home in England. Contemporary reports said Carrack died after a sudden stomach or viral infection. Plant was in New Orleans when his wife Maureen telephoned with the news. He flew back to England, and Led Zeppelin canceled the remaining 10 dates of its American tour. What could any concert or career achievement mean after a father learned that his child had died while he was thousands of miles away? Plant later admitted that the loss made him question the direction of his life and whether he had given enough time to his family. He considered leaving music, but drummer John Bonham, a longtime friend, supported him through the aftermath. Plant eventually returned to recording with Led Zeppelin. Carrack remained present in his father's music. Plant and John Paul Jones wrote All My Love for Led Zeppelin's 1979 album, In Through the Outdoor, as a tribute to the joy Carrack had brought the family. Plant later revisited that grief and I Believe, released on his 1993 solo album, Fate of Nations. Decades later, Plant still spoke of Carrack through the happiness he had created during 5 brief years. The canceled tour and the songs that followed remain the clearest public record of that loss for his family. Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby was an American comedian, actor, and television producer whose work made him one of the most recognizable entertainers of the 20th century. His only son, Ennis William Cosby, was born in 1969 and grew up largely outside the public image built around his famous father. Ennis struggled in school before learning that he had dyslexia. After receiving specialized support, he improved academically, graduated from Morehouse College, earned a master's degree from Columbia University, and began doctoral studies in special education at Teachers College. He also tutored children with learning differences and hoped to create better educational opportunities for students facing the same confusion he had once experienced. On January 16, 1997, Ennis stopped near Interstate 405 in Los Angeles to change a flat tire. During an attempted robbery, he was shot and killed. He was 27. What future was lost that night beyond the life of a celebrity's son? Ennis had been preparing for work centered on children with dyslexia. After his death, Bill and Camille Cosby supported the Hello Friend / Ennis William Cosby Foundation, created to promote early recognition and effective education for people with language-based learning differences. The name came from Ennis's habit of greeting people with the words, "Hello, friend." Bill Cosby publicly called Ennis his hero. The murder received national attention, but the strongest record of Ennis's life lies in his academic work. The students he helped and the educational mission continued in his name. He was not simply the son of a television star. He was becoming an educator with a clear purpose when his life ended beside his disabled car on a freeway. Dr. Dre. Dr. Dre, born Andre Rommel Young, is a rapper, producer, and entrepreneur whose work with NWA Death Row Records, Aftermath Entertainment, and artists such as Snoop Dogg and Eminem helped reshape hip-hop. In August 2008, however, his family faced a loss that remained largely outside his public career. His son, Andre Romelli Young Jr., was 20 years old and living with his mother, Janita Porter, in Woodland Hills, California. After spending Friday night with friends, Andre returned home early on August 23rd. His mother later found him unresponsive in bed and called emergency services, but paramedics could not revive him. A toxicology investigation took several months. In January 2009, the Los Angeles County coroner announced that Andre had died from an accidental overdose involving heroin and morphine. Police had found no evidence of foul play. How does a parent process a death when the official explanation arrives months after the funeral? Dr. Dre's publicist released only a brief statement, saying that he was mourning his son and asking for respect and privacy. Unlike many celebrity parents, Dre did not turn the loss into interviews, a memorial foundation, or a public campaign. He kept most of his grief away from cameras, leaving the verified record unusually limited. Andre's death is sometimes reduced to a single line in accounts of Dre's career. Yet the details that remain are painfully ordinary. A young man came home after a night out, went to bed, and never woke up. For a producer associated with control inside the studio, this was a family event. No skill money or influence could reverse or ever fully explain afterward. Keanu Reeves. Keanu Reeves is a Canadian actor whose roles in Bill and Ted's excellent adventure, Speed, The Matrix, and John Wick made him one of Hollywood's recognizable stars. During the height of his Matrix success, however, his private life was marked by two losses he has rarely discussed in detail. Reeves and Jennifer Syme were expecting their first child in 1999. On December 24th, 8 months into the pregnancy, their daughter, Ava Archer Syme Reeves, was stillborn. The couple separated several weeks later, though they remained close. There is no reliable basis for turning their grief into a simple explanation for the breakup. The confirmed fact is that both parents left the hospital without the child they had expected to raise. How do two people rebuild ordinary life after preparing a home and a future for a baby who never comes home? Further tragedy followed on April 2nd, 2001. Syme, 28, died after her Jeep struck parked vehicles on Cahuenga Boulevard in Los Angeles. Reeves had spent time with her the previous day and later served as a pallbearer at her funeral. She was buried beside Ava at Westwood Village Memorial Park. Reeves did not make either loss part of a publicity campaign. Years later, when speaking generally about bereavement, he described grief as something that changes shape rather than simply ending. His career continued through the Matrix sequels and eventually John Wick, but he resisted public attempts to turn tragedy into an explanation for his personality. The clearest record remains Restrained, a daughter lost before birth, Jennifer buried beside her, and a father who kept their memory largely private. Amanda Holden. A hospital scan in February 2011 gave Amanda Holden the news every expectant parent fears her baby's heartbeat had stopped. Holden, an English actress and television presenter best known as a judge on Britain's Got Talent, was about 28 weeks pregnant with her son Theo, whom she was expecting with her husband, record producer Chris Hughes. Holden later recalled noticing that Theo had stopped moving before doctors confirmed his death. She then had to deliver him stillborn. In interviews, she described holding her son afterward and remembering him as a beautiful baby. The hospital staff helped Amanda and Chris spend time with Theo, take photographs, and create memories they could carry home forever. How does a mother leave a maternity ward with photographs and a memory box instead of the child she expected to raise? For years, Holden spoke carefully about the experience rather than allowing tabloids to define it. In 2018, she launched Theo's Hope with the pregnancy and baby loss charity Tommy's. The appeal aimed to improve access to specialist bereavement counselors in maternity units, because many parents were still leaving hospitals without trained emotional support. She has continued marking Theo's birthday and has said she considers herself a mother of three, Theo and her daughters, Lexi and Holly. In 2026, she explained that imagining Theo as briefly choosing her before returning to the universe helped her process the loss. Theo's life ended before Amanda could bring him home, but his name became attached to practical support for other families facing stillbirth. That work gave public meaning to a child whose place within her family was never completely erased. Robert Redford. Robert Redford was an American actor-director and founder of the Sundance Institute, celebrated for Butch Cassidy and The Sundance Kid, The Sting, and Ordinary People. Long before Hollywood made him famous, he and his first wife, Lola Van Wagenen, experienced the death of their first child. Scott Anthony Redford was born in September 1959. Only 2.5 months later, he died from sudden infant death syndrome. Redford was still a young actor with little money or public recognition. He later said the loss created trauma that never found a complete resolution, even after he sought professional help. How does a father prepare for another lifetime of parenting after the first future he imagined disappears without warning? The family later welcomed Shauna James and Amy. Their son James grew into a documentary filmmaker and environmental activist, but his health was fragile for decades. He developed primary sclerosing cholangitis, a serious disease affecting the bile ducts, and underwent 2 liver transplants in 1993. That experience led him to advocate for organ donation and produce work about transplant recipients. In 2005, James and his father co-founded the Redford Center, using film to address environmental issues. In 2019, doctors discovered bile duct cancer, while James was awaiting another transplant. He died on October 16, 2020, at 58. Robert's representative described the grief of losing a child as immeasurable. More than 60 years separated Scott's death from James's, but both sons remained part of a family history Redford rarely discussed at length. His public achievements filled screens and festivals. At home, within one lifetime, he had twice faced the funeral of a son.